I used to think quiet was a luxury you earned if you worked hard enough and didn't screw up too badly. Turns out quiet is something you defend, the way you'd defend a family heirloom, the way you'd cup a candle in the wind. The morning it started, the sun was already pushing heat off the desert floor, and I was trimming bougainvillea along the path. Sweat rolling down my forearms, the kind of peace that hums when all the little routines line up. Then a matte black SUV rolled over my gravel like a shark fin through still water, and a woman in a gray power suit stepped out like she'd parked on a stage she owned. "Mr. Rudd," she said, the smile too bright for 8 a.m., each heel strike ticking across my stone path like a metronome. I wiped my hands on a rag and said, "Yeah, that's me." "I'm Valerie Crane, president of the Canyon Vista Association," she announced, extending a manicured hand. I didn't take it. My place, half an acre just outside the line on the map, was not in Canyon Vista. Never had been. "We've received multiple reports of pest activity on your property," she continued, flipping open a leather folder that smelled like new money. "Out of an abundance of caution, we've scheduled fumigation for the whole block. We strongly recommend you vacate for 5 to 7 days, starting tomorrow morning." I almost laughed. Not a single roach, ant, or mouse had crossed my threshold since I moved in. I'd know I'm an ex-firefighter. You notice things in houses other people miss: smells, drafts, lies. The paper she handed me was dressed up to look official, but the county seal was wrong, the font was lazy, and there wasn't a permit number in sight. "I'm not in your HOA," I said, folding the paper in half and giving it back. "And if this is county mandated, you won't mind if I call the county." Her smile didn't blink. "We consider this area part of our extended zone of interest." That was a new one. "Take the day to think it over," she added, tucking the fake order away. "We'd hate to involve code enforcement." She turned like we were done, like she'd nailed it, and the SUV hummed off with that smug, quiet, luxury car sound. I stood there with the shears in my hand, the silence bent just a degree out of tune, and did what you do when something smells wrong. I checked. Pima County Health, no notices, no advisories, no nothing for my zip code. I called 3 pest control outfits: Desert Shield, Ridgeline, Sonoran Safe. None had bookings under my name. None had bulk jobs scheduled nearby. One tech chuckled and said, "Let me guess, someone in an HOA handed you a county-looking flyer." I crossed the street when my neighbor Walt got home, retired Navy engineer allergic to nonsense, and asked if he'd heard about fumigation. He tilted his cap back, said he wasn't in the HOA either, and had seen exactly 0 bugs. That was all I needed. If someone was planning to use my absence, I'd give them one. I spent that afternoon in a little supply depot near the interstate buying 4 trail cameras, with silent triggers and real night vision, not the pixel soup you get online. By sundown, I'd tucked them into my lemon tree inside a vent above the living room, behind the pond rockwork, and in the gazebo beam, all wired to a private drive with a cloud backup I could view from my phone. I parked my truck 2 miles away, at a friend's place, booked a cheap Airbnb with a mildewy hot tub under a throwaway profile, let a couple neighbors see me leave with luggage, and then slipped back through the side gate to the guest casita I'd built behind the mesquite. If they wanted a 5-day window, I'd give them a camera-lit stage. For 2 days, the cameras caught butterflies, a coyote at 3 a.m., a courier misdelivering a package. No roaches, no ants, no fumigation vans. On the 3rd afternoon, just after 1:30, my phone pinged hard motion sequence driveway. A white cargo van rolled in slow, no markings. A guy in black slacks hopped out, looked around with that "do I own this" posture, and opened the back doors. Inside, folding tables, string lights, extension cords, aluminum trussing. A second van pulled up behind him, with a logo I recognized from fancy weddings, desert lantern events, experience the extraordinary. Two more polos jumped out and started unloading polished glassware and silver urns like my yard was their venue. By 3, a catering truck slid in and some poor line cook was balancing a whole carving station down my side path like he'd trained for it. Then came Valerie in a floor-length black dress you wear when you want people to assume you run the room. She walked past my koi pond, the one I rebuilt after my wife passed stone by stone, pump by pump, like it was a photo backdrop, and ushered a cluster of well-dressed people holding clipboards into my living room. Investors. Picture the private lounge here, she cooed into a wireless mic my patio mic caught perfectly. Mature landscaping, entirely secluded, ideal for high-end retreats. I paused the feed and exhaled through my teeth. They weren't fumigating. They were soft-launching my life. I downloaded everything labeled angles, synced time codes. By nightfall, my trees were wrapped in fairy lights. I didn't buy a canvas banner flapped from my gazebo Canyon Vista Retreat Club coming 2026 and a pop-up stage pressed against the west wall where I usually grill ribs. Somewhere between the champagne and the centerpieces, the switch flipped in my head. This wasn't neighborhood politics. This was theft dressed like a ribbon cutting. I called my attorney Nora Green, the kind of lawyer who files motions like she's pitching heaters. Then I called the sheriff's office. Nora called a reporter she knew, a woman named Rowan Hale, who could smell a story through concrete. We coordinated. We waited. We didn't have to wait long. The next morning, 2 sheriff units swung into my driveway lights, throwing red and blue across the palms, sirens staying mercifully off. I pulled up behind them in Walt's old F-150 and walked onto my own lawn, with my phone streaming everything to a private drive. Valerie stood with a mic in one hand and a champagne flute in the other, telling a man in a cornflower blazer about monetizing weekends, while a string quartet tuned in my dining room. Nora arrived seconds behind me, crisp suit hair pinned a folder under her arm, thick enough to stop a bullet. "Surprise," I said, stepping onto the flagstones. Valerie blinked like I'd come back from a deployment. She pivoted toward the investors with a laugh that didn't quite find a landing. "This is the current resident. We've been no," I said loud enough to cut the quartet. "I'm the owner. You are trespassing, and you lied to try to get me out." A deputy moved beside me. "Ma'am," he said to Valerie, palm open, even voice, "do you have any lease agreements, permits, or authorizations signed by Mr. Rudd?" "Of course I do," she said, voice pitching up as her hand went fishing in a folder that contained exactly 0 salvation. It must be with the coordinator." Nora stepped forward and handed the deputy a packet. "Deed survey, a letter from Public Health stating there is no fumigation order, and stills from our client's surveillance cameras documenting unlawful entry and setup." The deputy flipped through, glanced back at Valerie, then up at the caterer, who was suddenly reconsidering his career choices. I walked inside and found my kitchen counters covered with branded napkins and brochures, Canyon Vista Retreat Club, a vision for escapism. On the dining table, conceptual redesigns of my backyard lay under someone's elbow notes in black pen: remove shed, convert to sauna. Koi pond,